On Christmas Eve 2008, a man dressed in a Santa suit pulled up to the Ortega family home in Covina, California. While the family finished up the last of their holiday celebration, this man walked up to the home with gifts in hand. The first person he ran into was a 6-year-old girl. While in the middle of her screams for excitement for him, Santa took out a gun, aimed it at her face, and shot. This was the beginning of Bruce Pardoe's Christmas Massacre. Hello, I'm Tasha Nicole, and this is my series White Rabbit, where we deep dive into anything spooky, odd, or just interesting while I apply some special effects makeup. In light of my favorite holiday that actually just passed, I wanted to cover A Christmas Story. Well, a Christmas nightmare, actually. Today I will be applying some Christmas lights makeup. I wanted to do something really light because today's story is really tragic and it happened on Christmas, which makes it worse. This episode is a true crime episode, so if you're sensitive to those type of topics, please just join me in another video. Before we get started, I wanted us to take a moment to look at my beautiful tree. I wanted to do at least one video in front of the tree, and so this is the one video. And it's late, it's after Christmas, but we're getting there. Okay, let's get started. Bruce Pardoe was born March 23rd, 1963 in Los Angeles, California. He was a very intelligent man. He attended California State University at Northridge before getting a job at Jet Propulsion, where he was an IT engineer. Bruce was making pretty good money at this time. He was making over $120,000. So now that would be the equivalent of like almost $200,000. In spite of his pretty high salary, Bruce was obsessed with money, like obsessed. So much so that he spent a lot of his time at work hacking into the private documents of his coworkers just to see how much money everyone was making. Bruce's obsession with money also leaks over into his dating life. Bruce had terrible dating history, but once he did get engaged, he got engaged to a woman named Dahlia. During his engagement to Dahlia, Bruce's mother said that all he did was complain about money, complain about the wedding, the honeymoon, how much this was costing him. He complained so much that finally his fiance Dahlia was like, I will pay for everything. And she paid for the entire wedding and the honeymoon afterward. I mean, she even bought the flights and paid for the hotel stay. Only for Bruce to steal $3,000 from her and stand her up at the altar. And while she was at the altar, he was in Palm Springs spending her money. Dahlia obviously called off the wedding. I mean, if someone is making over $200,000 a year and they refuse to put any money toward y'all's wedding, that's like the biggest of red flags. The next significant relationship that Bruce had was with a woman named Elena. He was in his late 30s when they began dating, and he actually had a child with Elena. His name was Matthew. So when Matthew was barely over a year old, Elena went on a grocery shopping trip and she left Matthew home with his father, Bruce. Well, when she came back from the trip, Bruce was just standing in the middle of the floor holding Matthew's like limp, wet body. He had claimed that Matthew had fallen into the pool, but he was making no effort to resuscitate him. He hadn't called 911. After Elena got home, Matthew was rushed to the hospital. And although Matthew was saved, he did have severe brain damage. He was wheelchair bound. He was basically left unable to move his arms as well as his legs. From here on out, Matthew would need around-the-clock medical care for the remainder of his life. Bruce and Elena broke up about 6 months after Matthew's near fatal drowning, at which point Bruce cut them both entirely out of his life. Elena had to take him to court just to get assistance with Matthew's medical bills. Bruce really tried to act like neither one of them existed, but that was hard because Bruce's mother was very active in Matthew's life and he was very close to Elena. She was actually really ashamed about the way Bruce was acting, especially the way he was treating his son. She wanted for a really long time for Bruce to have that family unit, and she felt like he just ruined it. Sometime later, Bruce met a single mother of 3, and her name was Sylvia Ortega. She and Bruce had dated for a few years before they got married and bought this beautiful $500,000 home together. This home was like perfect for them. It was even really close to the church that they went to where Bruce volunteered as an usher. He was an usher for the children's mass. The church loved him, the children loved him, but at home, Bruce had started to grow really distant from Sylvia. After just a few years of marriage, Sylvia was already sleeping in another room, and every weekend she was going home to her parents so that she could be with them and just get away from Bruce. One very big point of contention, I feel like you already know, was money. Bruce was obsessed with money, and he didn't want Sylvia to have any access to anything that he thought was his. Even though they were already married and they were saving money together, Bruce refused to get a joint account. He was also very adamant that he would pay nothing to help support Sylvia's 3 children that she already had. Bruce would tell Sylvia all the time, "I came into this marriage with no children. Why should I have to pay for yours?" When we all know he wasn't even paying for his. This was actually really odd because by all reports, Bruce was super close with Sylvia's children, but he refused to put even $1 toward anything involving them. Now, although Bruce was fine living this lie of a life, his mother actually started to feel really guilty. She was very close to Matthew and Elena, but she had also started to grow really close to Sylvia. His mother spilled the beans to Sylvia. She told Sylvia everything about Matthew's mother, the accidental drowning, how Elena had to take Bruce to court just to get help with the medical bills. And I don't think I said this, but Bruce only ever made one payment to Elena and it bounced. And Bruce's mother also told Sylvia that even though he was not active in his child's life at all, had not seen him in years, he still claimed him on his tax return. That was the final straw for Sylvia. She ended up filing for divorce in 2008. She asked the court for over $3,000 a month in spousal support and also for Bruce to pay for her attorney fees. Allegedly, Bruce had opened a secret account that Sylvia had no access to, and out of their $88,000 that they had saved together, he had over about 2 months transferred $71,000 of that savings into his own personal account. The judge agreed with Sylvia, and Bruce was said to start making payments in June of 2008. There was a problem. Bruce ended up shortly after losing his job for billing false hours, and because he was billing false hours, he was denied unemployment. With his payments that he would have to make Sylvia, he was in the negative a few $1,000s just for his bills, and that didn't include all of the debt that he had. Bruce did succeed in swaying the judge's opinion so that So the spousal support was reduced. His payments got reduced to about $1,700 a month from the $3,000. Even though his payments were reduced, Bruce started to complain a lot to everyone about Sylvia and how she was taking all of his money. He was drowning in debt. And also Bruce felt like Sylvia was living this luxurious life with his money because she lived with her parents and she didn't even have bills. Another thing that pissed Bruce off was that during this whole time, his mother actually sided with Sylvia to the point where during the court proceedings, she sat behind Sylvia in support. The divorce was finalized December 18th, 1 week before Christmas. On December 24th, Sylvia's parents, Jose and Alicia Ortega, were hosting their annual Christmas Eve party. They had a really big family, so there was about 25 to 30 people at this party. Everything was going normal until about 11:30 at night when Bruce Pardo pulled up to the Ortega family home. Bruce was wearing a red Santa suit that he had rented. He hopped out his car with a gift in hand and started to walk up to the family home. Bruce was first greeted by an 8-year-old girl who was so excited to see Santa on Christmas Eve, but she soon realized something was wrong. Santa took a handgun out of his suit and shot her in the face. The family started running, screaming, and Bruce just continued his attack. He was shooting every single thing that was moving. As everyone was scrambling and grabbing their children, someone recognized that this was Bruce. Even though they had recognized him now, Bruce continued his attack. It was relentless. Bruce had 3 other handguns tucked away so that when he ran out of bullets, he can just reach for another. Some people had escaped the home by running out through the backyard and hopping a fence where they could go and call for help. Unfortunately, the shooting was just the first part of Bruce's attack. In that wrapped package that he had in his hand was a homemade flamethrower. Bruce unwrapped the flamethrower, then he covered the entire first floor with gas. While he was doing that, there was an open flame from 2 separate fireplaces, and it actually ignited the gas. He didn't even need to use the flamethrower because the entire floor burst into flames. Bruce had far overestimated the amount of gas that he would need to burn the house down, so he had effectively melted his Santa suit into his skin. This was mostly on an arm. I don't remember which arm it was. While all of this was happening, 911 was bombarded with calls. Some of the family had escaped and called 911. Neighbors had heard the gunshots, and now the home was engulfed in flames. By the time 911 and the fire department got there, the house was engulfed and Bruce was gone. When the fire was finally subdued, 9 bodies of the Ortega family were found in the house, leaving 13 children without parents. Between all these 911 calls to the police to go to the Ortega family home, 911 dispatch received another type of call. This time it was Bruce's brother. He had come home to find his brother, Bruce, had passed away from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Police did find evidence that initially Bruce was not going to unalive himself. He actually was going to go on the run. He had $17,000 strapped to his leg, and he had purchased a ticket to fly out to Illinois the next day. Authorities basically think that when Bruce melted his Santa suit to his body, at that point he knew he wasn't going to be able to make it through the airport, and he knew if he went to the hospital he would be arrested. So Bruce decided to take his own life. When Bruce's car was located, it was actually booby-trapped and it burst into flames. His car burnt down to essentially nothing. After this event, the community was shook, especially the children. Mental health experts were provided for the community, and especially the children that could not understand why Santa would do something like this. The Ortega's only surviving daughter, Leticia, actually started a blog, and her daughter was the one that was shot in the face when she greeted Bruce initially. She survived miraculously, and she started working as an advocate for survivors of gun violence. I know this story was a lot, especially for a Christmas story, but hopefully the makeup look I chose gave off a little bit of lighter energy than the story itself. Thank you so much for joining me while I created this Christmas look. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share with someone you love, and I can't wait to see y'all down another rabbit hole.